Hey guys, this is Alex Ramsey, host of Night of the Batman, and I'm here today to do something a little different from my normal reviews and videos. I'm going to do my very first commentary on a movie you may know about, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. Now, this particular movie, it's really sad what happening marketing-wise to it. I'm just going to do a brief introduction before I just start out with the commentary, and don't worry, I'll tell you if you do have the movie when to start out if you want to follow along with me as I watch it. And I'll try to provide as much, give you clues as to what part I'm watching so that you guys can sort of be linked up if you are trying to watch this with me. So right now, if you are, just have it on the black screen, just hit play but then pause immediately and have it on 0. But anyway, back to what I was saying. This is really sad what happened with this movie, because this is genuinely one of the best Batman-related things to come out of DC. One of the best movies, I think. I think it stands shoulder to shoulder with The Dark Knight. Now, this movie came out the reason why they wanted it in theaters, it was originally supposed to be just a straight to video thing that would tie into the animated series that came out in the 90s by Bruce Timm and the creators of the DC animated universe that many of you may know about. This was originally just supposed to be straight to video, but they gave them a little bit more money after, I think this came out around either Batman Forever or it was Batman Returns. It was around the time when the movies were getting really successful. It's like, oh, you got this, we want to put this in theaters. And they did that. Bad thing is they didn't really advertise it, so it's a tragedy that such a good movie got such a bad theatrical, it had such a bad turnout, basically, because they failed to advertise it. Which has always just, dumbfounded me why that happened. So, if you guys are going to watch it, go ahead and get ready to hit play right now. Okay, it's one of my favorite parts of the old cartoons, opening up on the old Warner Bros. Logo. They don't really do that much anymore with the Bugs Bunny in it. I like this, the beginning of this. One interesting fact about what they're singing, and this with the opening of the 3D city, is it's a choir singing the names of the directors and producers of the show backwards. I thought that was just kind of interesting. I like how it's sort of dramatic and moody, and it's the Batman theme. It sort of puts you in the mood for what you're about to watch. It lets you know what kind of movie you're watching, which is good. I also like the look of the 3D city, even if it does look a little dated by today's standards. The red sky also looks pretty cool. They use that a lot later in the New Adventures of Batman, where they have much more red sky. This is just dramatic. I like movies like this, though, how title sequences will put you in the mood for what kind of movie, the tone of the movie. A little fun fact, Bruce W. Timm, he put that in just to sound more official and everything. His name is Walter or something, I think. Alright, we're about to open up on the movie right around here, the title sequence just ended. I like how it opens up on mob dealings and stuff like that. You don't really see, well, you do see this a lot in the animated series, but you wouldn't see this a lot in other cartoons, like the mob being stuff like that. Of course, Batman, the animated series, was a completely different animal from anything on at the time. I also like Batman's dramatic entrance. This is just really sad that they weren't able to advertise this right. I mean, this is if this would have been popular, I think it really would have changed just the whole animation genre and how it's perceived today. Because this is a very adult film, even though it is marketed to kids. It's very adult. It's in a way more adult than what was going on at the time with the Burton movies and also the Schumacher movies that were popular around this time period. Here we get our first introduction to the Phantasm character, and I like that they do stuff like this, like with the fog and everything. It's very theatric, and there's explanation later. One of the things that bug me and has been brought up is how do bullets pass through that person, and how do solid objects pass through the Phantasm? That's always kind of bugged me too. But it doesn't, in any way, it doesn't ruin from the movie. I mean, this movie is still amazing. But I like the whole, I like the design of the Phantasm. It looks very much like the Grim Reaper. The whole scythe on the hand instead of like the normal Grim Reaper to have it in the hand. It's sort of cool how he has that like claw scythe looking thing on his hand. And also you can tell this is a movie by the presence of blood. They rarely, if ever, got away with having blood on the cartoon series, just because of practices and standards. They were very sensitive about that. They only got away with it once in that show, to my knowledge, and that was during the first episode where the restrictions weren't as high and they somehow got away with it. I like this, that people do in this story, they do die. They don't just get hurt and then they're fine. People die in this. Bad things happen to people in this. Like that, the Chucky saw, the mobster guy, he just died, and it's very clear that he died. You wouldn't see that at cartoons of the time, which I appreciate it for that. It's very adult. This is I like how Batman is sort of like implicated by this, like they think that he did it, and then that further goes on through the story, and the police for a while are chasing after Batman. I always find those sort of stories more interesting, like when the police are after Batman. They do a little bit of that in The Dark Knight. I just always find that more interesting, just because you don't normally see that. Normally, Gordon and Batman are working side by side. It's very rare that you see the police fight against Batman. This movie, in a lot of ways, I'll get more on this later, but in a lot of ways it reminds me of Year One. There's little bits and pieces that really remind me of it, and when we get to those parts, I'll just explain that more. I like how Alfred in this is really jokey too. That's very consistent with his characterization in the comics. He's very sarcastic. He's got a very dry wit in the comics, and I like other stuff like this. How they're setting up right here the character of Andrea, and that her and Bruce had something. We're not sure what of yet. It's not explained yet, but it is sort of set up that she's going to be a character in this movie. I like this party scene too. The very much like we rarely saw in the animated series. Saw Bruce acting like a playboy, like we see here, where he's very much playing up that side of him. We rarely saw that. He's more smart in the animated series than he is. Well, he's smart in both, but he didn't play the playboy angle as much in the animated series as he does in the comics and in some of the movies. But yeah, stuff like this is really great. Just him playing up the whole playboy side. We rarely see that. We see that more in the Nolan movies, and hopefully with the reboot we'll see more of that too, more consistent characterization. But yeah, I don't mind this version where Bruce Wayne is played as smarter. I I think that it works just fine. It's not a problem really. In fact, it leads to better stories, kind of making them smarter. But yeah, I like how this right here. I like this scene, how it sets up a past on romance with the character Andrea. And one interesting tidbit is that both in this movie and the next, I forget what her name is at the moment, but the woman that plays Andrea, she plays Lois Lane also in the Superman animated series that followed this after. And they're both voiced by the same person. The girl that's playing Andrea did this first, and then they cast her later as Lois. And in both movies, the World's Finest / Batman and Superman movie, and also in this, Bruce falls in love with Lois and then her, which is kind of cool because it's the same voice actor. It's just a little bit of trivia, sort of. I like these flashbacks, how we get to see a younger Bruce. It's very much reminds me of Year One. I like how these scenes contrast, like how they seem brighter in a way. They seem more hopeful towards the beginning, anyway. And how it's contrasted with the very sort of cynical, sort of darker world that was later on. That's the present. How the past and present, they both play roles in this, and how they inform events. The past in this informs events that happen in this movie in the present. I like how they play off each other in this movie, and how they contrast in some ways. How the past seems like almost brighter, warmer place. Bruce seems like a warmer, just more caring and loving person than he is later on. He's very much, you can see that he's either very naive and he's just has a good heart. He still does, but he's lighter. He's got a lighter sense of humor. He's not been scarred up as much as he has later on. He hasn't been up against those criminals that have sort of hardened him yet. He's still very much not innocent, but very much in his early years, so to speak. And it shows. Also, you can see how both the characters and the city and just the whole atmosphere of the place in general has changed from then to now. It's very interesting. I like little bits like this, like how it gets cloudy when he starts smiling at Andrea, and how sort of there's this, it's sort of like left up to interpretation, but the character Bruce Wayne takes these sort of weird coincidences as signs that maybe they weren't supposed to be together, that it's his parents talking to him through different ways, like different signs and stuff like that, and I find that interesting. This scene in particular very much reminds me of both the Year One and also Batman Begins, which was based heavily on Year One, with the ski mask and everything, of him trying to take out criminals and not having that edge yet that he needs in order to put fear into them. He hasn't discovered that yet. He's very much still wet behind the ears, so to speak. And he still has a lot to learn. He's still very naive, and again hasn't found that symbol, in this case being a bat, that he'll later find that he needs in order to become what he wants to become, a symbol, something to stop the villains and make the city a better place. Which is very much at the core, very much what Batman is about, and what Year One hits on a lot is that he, like in the earlier years, he didn't know what he was doing. He still hadn't found that symbol. He still hadn't become the Batman that we know him as today. He was very much a different person, and it shows a lot in these flashbacks. I like how this also is a very smart, intelligent mystery, and the reveal at the end is very shocking. Like it sort of leaves you guessing. It sort of points you in one direction, and then once it reveals to you who it actually was. It's a genuine reveal. Like at least I know I was surprised at the end to find out it was her. I like this little thing with Detective Bullock as a younger police officer. I thought that was kind of fun. But yeah, the action in this movie is also really cool. It's very, like, there's a lot of it. It's not, by no means is it an action picture. It's more of a mystery sort of drama thing, with the action just sort of getting you from one place to the next sort of thing. But yeah, the action is very good, just like it was in the animated series. But this, to me at least, this feels like, it feels like the animated series in a way, but it doesn't feel like a really long episode of the animated series. It feels very much like its own self-contained story, and that's a trap that some series can fall into. Some, like, for instance, The Simpsons, they made a movie. I'm just going to go off topic sort of for a second. And their movie was compared, like, they said it felt like a very long episode, and that was true. It's a hurdle that people making TV series have to sort of leap over to try and find a way to tell a necessary story that's not just like a really long episode or feels like one. This scene very much feels like Year One. If you look at some of the panels from Year One where he's doing karate and stuff, this very much looks like it. I like how he explains that he hasn't found that symbol yet to strike fear into them, and that Andreas just walked up, and how both of those lives, like his romantic life and his promise or his vow, as he refers to it in this movie, are very much colliding, and one is interrupting the other. And what I find very sad, and when we get to it, I'll talk about this more, but I find it very sad that with the vow that he made, that he couldn't have a romantic relationship, or at least the one he wanted, and still be the crime fighter that he wanted to be. I find that very sad that there's no way with how dedicated he has to be to stopping crime. It's either one or the other. He has to decide, and he echoes this line in there. He can't have both. He has to decide which one he wants, which I find very, very compelling. I like how, again, how in this, the Mask of the Phantasm, how the identity of the Phantasm is very much, like, hidden. It's sort of like you're wondering it too, like, who is this person? What are they doing? Why are they killing these mobsters? What's the pattern behind all this? And the character's very interesting. I think they do a very good job of leading you one way when it's really the other way, and doing little movie tricks in order to throw you off as to what the identity of the Phantasm is. And I would expect nothing less from a series like this that did such adult things in the animated series. I'd feel cheated if they somehow made a less cool movie. But again, though, this is better, in my opinion. This is way better than Batman 1989 and Batman Returns. I know they got the inspiration to portray a darker Batman from this, but still, in my personal opinion, this movie trumps those. This movie is doing much more adult things. It's a lot smarter, in my opinion, than those movies were. I mean, I like Tim Burton's movies. I'll be the first to say that. I even like Returns a lot. For its numerous flaws, it is an enjoyable movie, in my opinion. But yeah, these are a lot smarter, and it's kind of funny in a way that the animated series would be more smart. And there's the scene I was talking about earlier where the solid object just passed through the Phantasm. But yeah, how it was doing smarter things with the whole series, with the animated series and this movie in general, that the live action series was not that mature and not that smart with its storytelling. It's just kind of crazy how that happened. But I'm also glad that Tim Burton made those movies so that we could get a serious Batman like this and have a really good movie like this, even if it wasn't successful at the time. Have a really great movie like this come out. A show that made me think when I used to watch it as a kid. This show got me into Batman as a kid. Before this, this is my first exposure to him was the animated series. And often when I think of Batman is this show, just like its ideas in general. A lot of the characters that play the villains in this, I think whenever I'm watching other things, I compare it to what they did in this show because of how influential and just like how much of a lasting impact it made on me as a kid. And I like the again how they're able to get away with stuff like this, like killing off mobsters and sometimes gruesome ways, and just get away with it in an animated cartoon. That was almost unheard of at the time. You didn't have stuff like that in the 90s, with the exception of Spawn, but that was on HBO. That's sort of a different thing. And I have my problems with that show, but that's not what we're talking about right now. I like how this movie, again, the whole, I can't get past the whole mystery thing. This movie, if they wanted it to, could have very much been a very unintelligent and just an action-filled movie. They didn't have to put all this. You can tell that they put a whole lot of effort into making this movie, and that the creators of it genuinely cared about the product that they were making. They just weren't making some movie to make some money. They were making a movie that they liked a lot, that it's obvious they put a lot of effort into it, and that they wanted to tell a really good story, and they did. I think it's still just a tragedy that it didn't work out. I like Batman investigating here. Usually, you'd get a lot of this in the animated series, but usually in his other media incarnations, and sometimes even in the comic books, we don't get to see a lot of the detective side, which is kind of crazy because I guess it just all depends on characterization, but he is the world's greatest detective. In a lot of ways, that's one of his dominant traits, is that he is one of the greatest detectives. I like that he's doing detective work in here and he's trying to solve the mystery. I like this right here, how she sees Batman, Andrea, and how they both visit the graves like in the flashback, and how she knows it's Bruce then just by looking at it. I like that she finds that out quickly, and how that scene from earlier in their lives is paralleled here in a much darker and very much more just like dark and gritty world from the one that they had before. Right now I'm on the scene where Batman is looking in on Andrea, and I think his name is Artie. He's the guy that's after Batman and used to work with Andrea's father in the past, trying to get to Andrea. But yeah, he's kind of annoying, and I don't think he's the bad guy, so he's not supposed to be really all that likable. Yeah, this is kind of creepy, though. I'm sorry. Batman sort of just stalking them, That's kind of a little bit creepy. But I like this scene right here. Again, this show was like they go to a World's Fair. That's very old school, with like the world of the future and stuff like that. That's very like 50s and stuff like that. This show had little elements like that. It gave it sort of a timeless feel. Like they would have modern stuff and then they would have stuff that's archaic all mixed in. I love that about this show. It gave it very much a timeless and a timeless feel to it. I like just the design of this overall. The little robots up there, they kind of look like, I haven't seen it, but I've seen pictures of, if you ever seen Metropolis, the old black and white movie, they look like the female robots in there, which also inspired C-3PO. It's just a little bit of random trivia, but I love this scene right here where he sees this red car that looks very similar to another car he'll be driving later on in the future. And it's kind of funny that Andrea says, "You think we'll see any of this in the future?" He's like, he looks over at the Batmobile, or not the Batmobile yet, but something very similar. I thought that was a cool nod to Batman just in general. But I like how, again, past scenes from this inform what is, just overall in general, what the mystery is. Like, it gives you hints and clues about just who the person is behind the Phantasm. I find that very cool, how the past very much informs the present and the whole mystery in general. Here we're introduced to Andrea's father. And already he looks like a dork, but anyway. Yeah. Arthur Reed, that's his name. That's it. Artie's his nickname. Sorry. But yeah, this scene right here sets up Andrea's father working with the mob, which is another vital clue in this. And one of the downfalls of Andrea and Bruce's relationship later on, which I'll get to more when that scene comes. But I like that line, how he says nothing's more important than family. How Bruce lost his family and how that's very much, I don't know if that's supposed to be some sort of, I don't know what that's supposed to, I'm trying to think of a parallel to it, but I can't, sorry. I like how these characters are set up, though. So later on, when you see them, you know sort of what their deal is. And I like this scene here. If that guy looks familiar, you'll find out who he is later. I like this, how they keep on going to this in there, how this is very much a theme, how both lives are bound to interfere with each other, and how he can't have both. He either has to be a crime fighter or he has to marry Andrea. It can't just be both. I like that. It's very tragic that he has to choose one life like this, like both lives interfere with each other. How he's saving this guy from these muggers. And it sets up very early on that this is a very corrupt city that where mobsters make crooked deals and people get robbed from regularly, and it's very much a city that I could see a young Bruce Wayne making that vow that he would clean it up, prevent, like in the comics, how he does that in one or other characterization. He sort of does that to, in his own words, prevent any Joe Chills from, or any other crooks from doing the thing that happened to him and his family, so that there's no more kids without families, sort of stuff like that. Cleaning up a town that very much needs it. I mean, if you look at this town, it's still brighter, but you can definitely tell there's corruption in it, and that it very much needs a hero in order to cleanse it from that. I like how here he's designing the bat suit, or trying to design it. How very much he has to decide. He can't have both. He can't have both. I like how he says, "What am I still doing this for?" That's very much like, that would be very realistic if someone made a vow, like when they were younger and they were still trying at it. Why they would question it. That's very realistic. I like that. I like how he very much says he can't have both. He has to either choose one or the other, because sooner or later one thing is going to interfere with the other, and how he's very conflicted about which decision he should make. He can't answer the phone to Andrea because he can't decide which life he wants. He's both angry that he can't have his happy life and that he can't have the other one. I love this scene. It's the best scene ever. It's this scene where he's talking to his parents. I like this scene, how he takes the lightning strikes as his parents' disapproval, and how he begs. He wants his life to be different now, is what he's saying. I love that line. He didn't count on being happy. He very much has found the love of his life, and he wants to still honor his vow, but he doesn't want to anymore. And it's very tragic that he takes these signs, this lightning, as a sign that his parents are disapproving of his life, that he very much doesn't want to be Batman anymore. He doesn't want that sort of lifestyle anymore. He wants to be with Andrea. He loves her, and how ultimately, in the end, that's ripped away from him. It's very tragic, and turns Batman more into a tragic hero than I think he's ever been before, which I find very interesting, and also a side of Batman we haven't seen, his emotional side. We haven't seen this sort of, we haven't got this deep under Batman's skin up to this point. We haven't seen like what he was like before that much, at least in terms of the animated series, and we haven't just seen how he is as just like a person. It very much humanizes him in a way that he wasn't before. It makes him a real person. He wants happiness over what he chose, and how that's ultimately denied to him is one of the most tragic things about this movie, and just about the Batman character in general. I like little bits like that, like where the mobster has to use like a breathing apparatus sort of thing. Oh, I like this too. Sorry. O'Neill's Funding Corp and Adam's Tool and Trade or something like that. I like little in jokes like that. If you guys don't know, Dennis O'Neil created, and so Neil Adams. Dennis O'Neil created the serious Batman, like he wrote it in the 70s, and Neil Adams drew it. I actually met Neil Adams. He's really cool. But anyway, I like little in jokes like that for the fans. I think that's really cool. I like this scene too, where Alfred gives him some sass back about how he knows him more than Batman thinks he does. I like that Alfred in this series is allowed to get away with stuff like that. Because it's very much not like the sort of, even though he is his butler, he's more like a father figure to him, very much like a, sort of like a sounding board sort of thing, where he can confide in Alfred anything and tell him anything and sort of just pour out, not that he pours out his emotions, but he can share stuff with Alfred that he doesn't share with anyone else. He's very much like a confidant to Batman. This scene is great. Batman, actually Bruce Wayne proposes to Andrea, and there's very much the whole thing with her father and the mob going on, causing a lot of conflict that we'll see much more in a little while. I like how ultimately it seems like in the flashbacks that things are going to get better, that he is going to get married to her. He's chosen her over the vow that he made. And that's not the choice that most people would think he would make. I mean, he's choose happiness over that. And it's very sad that he ultimately loses that. And it's also unfortunate that it takes the bats coming out of the cave when they put the ring on as whatever you will, but I find it very tragic that like he takes it as a sign that they're not supposed to be together. He's supposed to be Batman. It also leads to his discovery of the cave, and another really crucial and very cool scene in this. This movie has a lot of those. This is a very good movie. I don't know if I could I probably will do a review of this down the line. This is the last time he will see her until later on when they meet. And again, there's that guy that we saw earlier that if you guys don't know who he is, I'll explain it when it's revealed later. But yeah, I like how he's discovering the cave here. He's very much like exploring the Batcave, still like looking around in it. And this is very sad. He's got the paper from like a letter in the ring back that Andrea has left with her father, and to forget about her. How he very much he had that relationship. He was in love with her. He chose her over his life, and how he ultimately lost all that, and how that led to him becoming Batman. I like how he didn't initially choose that path, how he changed it, and how he very much lost that, and that pushed him farther towards becoming what we see him as now. Right now, if you're still watching the scene of him first putting on the mask, it's very good. The dramatic music and Alfred seeing him and saying, "My God." I like to interpret that as this nice young man he once knew, this guy that he's been with, almost like a son to him, has turned from this very nice, sort of respectable, very nice person to sort of this demon, this dark devil that lurks around in caves and has become this sort of almost monster-looking creature. I like how we get to see the World's Fair again. I like how they do that, how they contrast how things look from now to the future, how things like this that were once all put together are now just completely torn up and dilapidated, how everything very much that we see in the past is destroyed, just like Bruce's relationship with Andrea. And this also leads to one of my favorite reveals of a character, the Joker, played very well by Mark Hamill. I love him in this movie, and just like in general, he does an amazing Joker. Whenever I think of the Joker, I think of his voice. Many of you may know him from the Arkham City. If you haven't seen this movie, you probably know him from that. He got his start in this show. This is where it all started. And he sort of, like, he said when he was doing it, he sort of envisioned he was in, like, this radio drama or something like that, and very much sort of matched his voice to that. How I like how voice actors will do this, how he looked at the drawing and just sort of came up with a voice for it. I also like it's kind of cool and consistent with the character of the Joker that he would have a dilapidated sort of, not fun house, but just sort of amusement park like hideout like this. This is very consistent with who the Joker is as a character. He delivers some very funny lines, and I like that the Joker's not just there just because, oh, he's the Joker, we better have him in the movie. No, he plays into the story. He's very much not a pivotal part, but he very much plays into the story of the past, which will be revealed. And how it's not just like a random cameo just because of the popularity of the Joker. They could have done that, but they didn't. They made him part of the story, and he's very much a part of this story. And I like how out of all the people to go to help for that, that this mobster in particular would go to Joker, one of the most crazy and unhinged villains that you would never ever confide in or go to. I guess it's the last resort for him. He goes to him, which I find very funny. I like how how the rating of this allowed the Joker to be perhaps a little bit more sadistic and like crazy than we normally have seen him. He's a little edgier, not that much that it's like a complete 180, but he very much is, like, you can tell it subtly that he's very much played more creepily and less lighthearted for kids TV. He did that too in the animated series, but very much this is a little bit of an edgier Joker. Not as edgy as the one we'd later see in films such as Return of the Joker, where he was almost at the Hannibal Lecter level of just like creepiness. But yeah, it's pretty cool seeing him do stuff like this. I like that Andrea and Bruce are very much like against each other now for some reason. Like she's very hostile towards him, and we'll find out why. She sort of acts like this. It's sort of to push him away. She wants him away from like her, and just for a very particular reason. I guess since you guys have probably seen this, I don't think you would be watching this if you hadn't, that she's the Phantasm. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out. That's why she's trying to push him away. And that's revealed when she cries, because she's being mean to him. She has to try and push him away so he doesn't put the pieces together and stop her killing spree of the mobsters before she's done, basically. She has to try and push him away from her so that he doesn't put the pieces together. I find that very interesting. She's obviously killing off the monsters is revealed because even after they left, they didn't leave. Like, she left, but the mobsters killed her dad, so that's why she's going after them. I like this misdirection right here. How immediately following the scene with Andrea crying, we go to the Phantasm, and that sort of throws you off. You still, at this point, you're not sure who it is. You don't think it's Andrea, and how could you think it's Andrea? But it very much throws you off. I like this reveal coming up. How it's that grotesque smile that used to freak me out so much when I was a kid. I couldn't watch this movie when I was younger just for that one scene. I like how he's allowed to do darker stuff like that, how he's putting that permagrin on their faces, very much like the comics. And his first appearance, he did stuff like that. That's how he killed people, was putting that hideous grin on them after he had put a poison in them or something. I like how they're able to do stuff like that. And they did that in the later animated series, The New Adventures of Batman. And it's very creepy. I find that more disturbing than if he had just killed the person. I like that that Batman in this is going after the Phantasm. Phantasm's really running fast, but anyway, how he tries, or she tries to get him away, 'cause she doesn't want him in this. It's very much about the monsters. She just wants revenge on them. She doesn't want anything to do with Batman, which I find very interesting, and sort of I find stuff like this very interesting too, how she's able to pull a Batman on him and just disappear past the smoke. And I like that the police are still chasing him, thinking that he is the person that's killing off these mobsters, that he's gone crazy and started killing them. I always like stuff like that. Kind of reminds me in a few ways of Batman Year One and also Batman Begins. I like when the police are, again, like I like when they're chasing after him. I think that's very cool. It makes for very good, one, action scenes. It makes really cool action scenes. And two, it's just fun in general to see stuff like that. Now, I find Bullock's characterization in this very interesting. It's very much like the comics, except the fact that from the very little I've read of Bullock, he's not a bat hater in the comics as much. They very much played that up in this. Like, he doesn't like Batman at all. And these books, I don't know if that was maybe just, I read Nightfall and it had Bullock in it, and he very much didn't mind Batman. Like, in fact, he believed in Batman. And I'm not sure which one is off on characterization. I'll admit just right off the bat, most of what I know about Bullock is from the animated series and just a little bit from Nightfall that I've been reading, which I will review at some point. But yeah, again, the action, like we just saw a huge explosion, and the action in this is great. But I like how it doesn't distract at all from the story. How it very much goes in hand with the story and doesn't feel out of place. Again, the blood, like it just showed blood in his hand. I like how they're able to do stuff like that and get away with more violent images than, say, on the animated series. How we're offered a very adult tale here that we wouldn't normally see any other place. Like, it's interesting that one of the best Batman movies ever had the worst not box office, but had the worst just like draw to it. Like, it didn't have a very good run in the movie theaters. It pretty much bombed, which is very tragic. Again, that's advertising though. And one of the things that will always puzzle me, if they wanted to make this movie so bad, why didn't they advertise it better? I kind of wonder almost if this had just been a home video, would it still be regarded as much? And I think, yeah, it would. I think the theatrical release, it didn't do much for it. I think much more, it picked up on popularity once it got on home video, and very much became more popular that way once it hit box office. I like how Andrea in this, how it throws you off again, how she was able to be in that place and save him. and it throws you off even more as to what her identity really is, and how she's trying to get back into his life again. I like how that's paralleled before, but everything's different now. Everything's changed. They're not the same people they once were, and things are more complicated now. The world is different that they're in. They weren't the people they once were, like I said before. Yeah, and in this scene, Andrea is explaining how her father basically like has run out of time, and how he gets extra time from that guy for his debts or something like that he has to pay to the mob, and how this very much, how his dealings with the mob just in general, how this, just everything in this sort of made it impossible for Bruce and Andrea to be a couple, which is very sad and tragic. And how after this they would never be the same. This event, that letter, and also the stuff that happens to Andrea here would both change who their characters were forever. They would never be the same that they once were. They would never be as innocent as they once were. They very much were scarred by this incident, and it's very sad and tragic. I like how very much, while telling this flashback, it's taking you in a different direction. It's implicating the father. It makes you think that the father is behind the whole phantasm thing and throws you off. This scene very much sort of implicates him and makes him look like that he's the phantasm. And that's why Andrea told him to throw him off and sort of shift the blame to him. It very much, they do a lot of tricks like this that sort of makes you think that the reason, like she said, the reason I came back was to stop my father, who obviously isn't around anymore. But it's very apparent that she's not the same person she once was. Before this, she would never lie to Bruce. Like, it was still the same as it was before. She would never lie to him. And now this phantasm, this sort of thing, this sort of cancerous thing that has grown inside her heart, like this vengeance, has very much turned her to a very different person that would lie and manipulate Batman to make him think and throw him off, make him think that the phantasm was another person. That was something that they would both never do. That they've changed, and it's very apparent. And I like how when she comes back, they try, but it ultimately doesn't work because, like I said before, they are different people. This movie is fundamentally about change, I think. Just in my opinion, it's about how the past can inform future events. How very much, like in the past, your life, how you envision it then and how it is now is very different. How sometimes those goals and just those different things that you see yourself doing doesn't always work out. How what we think our future is and what it actually is can often be two very different things. This movie is fundamentally a tragedy, a very romantic tragedy that occurs, and again we get to get under Batman's skin, which we hardly ever get to get this deep into, like, his mind and different things like that. It's a very rare occurrence that this happens, which I appreciate this movie for. I like how he's offered a second chance of happiness with her, but ultimately it doesn't work because they're different people. Those events in the past have scarred them too much to the point where it wouldn't work or it can't work. here's the reveal I was talking about earlier. And we find out that that guy from earlier that threw a cigarette at Bruce Wayne's car, turns out he's the Joker. Yeah. I don't really, I mean, it ties him into the story, but I'm very much in the camp that I don't like Joker to have, like, a definite, and this gives him a very definite backstory. In the comics, it's very much sort of like he remembers it different ways, and this very much, like the Tim Burton movies, gives him a set backstory that this is what happened, this is who he was. It's like, it's positive that this is what happened. Which, I think this movie, that's the only way they could have done it to tie him in to this story and not make it feel like a contrivance that the Joker just happened to show up in the story. It very much links him into this mystery, which I like, but also it sort of gives him a set origin of who he was before this, which, I don't know, it's just, I guess it's just the purist in me, but I like it when Joker has many different backstories and can't just, like, he'll remember it, like in the Killing Joke, he said he'll remember it one way one day and one way the next. It's not a set backstory. I like this scene between Artie and Joker. You didn't get to really see him that much in the gray suit in the animated series. I very much like that, because you don't often get to see him and stuff like this. I think it's very cool looking. I like how Joker is used as the comic relief in this movie. We need something to lighten up, and I think it very much fits that the Joker, particularly this incarnation, could work as the comic relief, something to lighten up just the dark mood and just the story in general. Because without any comic relief, this would be a very dark, a much darker story than it is. I think he's very much like a comic relief, but also he's very threatening, which I very much like. I like him to be funny and threatening. I think that's very consistent with his characterization in the comics. And here we go again. He attacks someone else in a very creepy way, like he puts the laughing gas on Artie. He doesn't kill him this time, which I find very interesting. I also found it very creepy when he would do this to people, like where he'd make them forcibly laugh. I mean, that's just so creepy. Another sad thing, I think, just in general, and one of the reasons why I did this commentary, is because if you get the Batman Mask of the Phantasm disc, it's also very sad that there are no special features. I don't think on any version of this that they released a special feature on it. I think that in the, I've seen online, they had a making of HBO special for Mask of the Phantasm. I think they could at least throw that on there. I mean, you can tell that the people that made this, Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and all them, very much put their heart into this, and it's very sad that we don't at least get a commentary or some sort of, or they could have even thrown the HBO making of special on there, and it would have been something. I think all this has got on it is, for special features, it says full screen version and theatrical trailer, which is also another tragedy. It's such a good film like this, all it comes with is a theatrical trailer. I feel like it would benefit more if they were to release, and I would even sign a petition if I had to, for them to release a special edition version of this with like commentaries by the writers, behind the scenes making of featurettes, something, anything, deleted scenes, storyboards. I'd take anything at this point, particularly a commentary. I'd love a commentary on this, just their thoughts on it, what they were thinking when they made certain scenes, what what went into making certain things, just the story writing process in general. I'd love to have some sort of behind the scenes thing on here, and I think it's a real crime that Warner Brothers, who released this, didn't include any sort of special features or didn't put really any thought behind it, which if you get the animated series like on DVD, it does come with commentaries, but I think this is a movie. This is, if anything deserves a commentary or some sort of behind the scenes look talking about it, this clearly does. And me just being I love DVDs and I love special features. Just me being like a DVD fanatic in general. I'd love it if they released a special edition of this. This film was often overlooked when it was first released again. Like Roger and Ebert did a review of this later on because they didn't do advertising for it. They're like, oh, we missed this one. It's like, yeah, because Warner Brothers wanted a movie and they didn't advertise it right. But, yeah, that's another bad thing. Like, you can clearly tell they put all this effort into it, and that it wasn't successful. I think is one of the most biggest tragedies about this movie. I mean, it could have, if this movie had been successful, I think just the face of animation in general would have been a lot more adult than it is now. I think animation would have been taken more seriously, just in general. I think it's a crime that this movie wasn't very successful. We're coming up on the scene where Joker killed, or not Joker yet, Jack Napier, I think is what they refer to him in this series, like they did in the Tim Burton movie, but murdered her father. And this, of course, leads us into the reveal that she is the Phantasm. She's been the one behind this. Her father being murdered drove her to this, which I find very sad and tragic. I didn't think about this though before, but that tragedy in one way drove both her and Bruce to become different, like become different people and put on these personas. One was a very vengeful sort of anti-hero in the Phantasm, and the other one was a hero. I find that very compelling, that without that one event, that one singular event in this, that they wouldn't have become what they are now. I like how violent it gets when we get further into their fight and stuff like this, how violent both the Joker and her get fighting each other. Again, it's such a great movie. I think if I were to review this, it'd be all pros pretty much, because I can't find a single thing besides that one I mentioned earlier, which doesn't at all take away from how great this movie is. That would really make it, that doesn't even really factor in that much. Now, some of you who are fans of Joker might be wondering where Harley Quinn was. This was made before, I think this was made either she was in the series. I don't think she was yet. I don't think she'd become big yet. If those of you that don't know, Harley Quinn was made in the animated series by Paul Dini. He wanted her to have like a hench girl. I don't think she was made yet. I think this was made during the very early time when Batman was always successful during the animated series, but it was like at its beginnings before Harley Quinn came around, and they made this. That's why I think she's absent from this. I don't think she would have worked in this movie. That might be part of the reason too. I'm not 100% if this was made like mid-season or something like that, but I know it was made very early on in the Batman the Animated Series run. That's why Robin is absent from this, even though he was in the first season. I like how Batman's alone in this. In the sequel, Batman and Robin team up, but I like how in this it's very much he's alone. It's his story. it wouldn't have worked with any additional characters because it's very much just like it's him. He doesn't need Robin or anyone else in this story. Again, it's his story. It's his sort of. It's very much a story about him and him as a person and how this mystery and just everything involved sort of changed him, and how he lost a past love because of that tragic event that happened. We're coming up towards the end now, actually. I'm on the scene where Batman, how he just destroyed the jet turbine with his like bat bike, I guess, bat cycle. I forget what it's called in the series, but anyway, I like how there's a clear distinction made by Batman in this between what she has become and what he is. She's very much, as Alfred says later, she let this whole tragedy very much turn her into a very vengeful person. It very much darkened her and made her a killer and a murderer, and it very much made her a villain. In her quest to try and right the tragedy, she very much became a spirit of vengeance, and just like she became the very thing that she was trying to kill. I think that's the most tragic, that tragedy sort of twisted her in a way it didn't twist Batman, and the distinction is made between those two. That Batman very much is a person that believes in justice, not vengeance. He would never kill or stoop so low to that level. I like how in that tragedy both a hero and in a way a villain was made. I like how they have that WB logo right there, and the model city that Batman is walking through right now. I like little Easter eggs like that. And this scene very much, from what I've read, is very much like inspired by the classic monster movies, with like two giant, if you've seen it, it's sort of like King Kong and Godzilla, something like that, like them fighting in a big old city. I think that's kind of cool. And very much like a nod to what this sort of animated series feels like. It very much has those elements of the 50s in it, and just like the 30s and earlier times in general. I like how it has little nods like that in it. I think stuff like that in this is fun. It's kind of on that level where it's bizarre but fun. Like, it would look goofy in any other context, but it looks really cool here. Now, I will not be talking about the sequel as much in this. I'll say that I might do another commentary on that. I liked the sequel a lot more when I was younger. I think this movie is very much superior to that movie. I think the Sub-Zero movie was just kind of okay. It's not the greatest thing ever. But yeah. Anyway, though, he just rigged the place up with explosives. That's very much like Joker. If he doesn't immediately win, he always has some other plan. Like he's always going to try and have the last laugh and come out the one on top. That's very much consistent with who the Joker is as a character. That sort of if I don't win, nobody wins mentality that we see in this. And it's also very symbolic to see this like a place that both of Andrea and him remember from their past sort of go up in flames, their past sort of destroyed, and no longer standing like it is, like this place is destroyed, much like their relationship. They'll never be the same people that they once were. This place is very symbolic, sort of where their lives went. They're very much not the people they were. Those former selves, the way they used to be, are dead. like the relationship also is dead now. They could never have a happy relationship with just how much they've changed. With how Andrea took the turn as a spirit of vengeance, and how he is now very much the polar opposite. He very much believes in justice and never killing. And how this, how very much again this sort of any chance at happiness Batman had with her was destroyed the day that letter came to him. After that, there was no chance for them to ever be together again, which is an ultimate tragedy of this. I like very much that Andrea in this catches up to him. I like how very much I love this scene coming up. My goodness, this movie is just like, it's amazing. The animation, everything is great. The story is amazing. I like how very much it ends on this. On a thing that once made them happy being destroyed. Their past destroyed now. What they used to be destroyed, going up in flames, very symbolic. I like how Joker's like, I'm gonna die now, and he realizes that he's gonna die, and he finds that like very funny, like that's the ultimate punchline to him. And I find it also very sad that Bruce wasn't able to save her, and that maybe perhaps she was beyond saving at this point. I think that once she decided to start killing, that's the point where she became a lost cause, that there was no way he could have convinced her not to continue down the path that she led, which I find also very sad and tragic. I find this very, we're coming up on the end, guys. Find this last scene very sad. How he's lamenting over how he's lost her again, and how he wanted so badly to save her, but like Alfred said, she was beyond saving. There was no way. Once she made that decision, her soul inwardly, like she became a different person. It blackened, as Alfred said, it blackened her soul, and there was no way for him to do anything. Which I find very tragic. The one person he cares about, he wasn't able to save. I like that thing about the past coming back and informing the future. Sort of haunting in a way. I like this final scene, how he finds the locket there, and it's very much a clue that she's still alive somewhere. Very tragic. They can never be together. The way that, like I said before, I'm repeating myself, but the way the lives they both led, there was no way it could have ever worked out, and it's the ultimate tragedy that they both love of each other's lives, and they're never able to be together now. And like she says, like Andrea says in this scene right here, she truly is alone, because without him, she has nobody. It was one person. They both meant so much to each other, and they ultimately lost each other because they had changed. They were no longer the people they once were. I find that very sad and compelling. I like this ending with Batman answering another call and still going on, and how ultimately he's offered a second chance at happiness, but it doesn't last. He can't take it because the city needs him more than that. He ultimately can't go down that path of happiness because at the end of the day, he has to protect this city and make it a better place, because without him, the city would just go back to the way it was before. And that, guys, is that's the end of the movie. So I hope you enjoyed my commentary of it. Again, this movie is amazing. It's a great mystery. You don't see some of the stuff coming. It's done with very subtle tricks, like whoever the identity of the Phantasm is. It's a very sad, very tragic mystery, and very much the past informs the present events. And it's more tragic. It makes Batman a much more tragic hero than we've ever seen him as before. Now everything's linked, and it's all tied together in one way or another. Is very good. It's one of the best things about this. The paralleling of the past and the future works very well in this movie, and just overall, it's an amazing movie. I'm glad you guys watched this. I hope you enjoyed my commentary. I'm not going to talk all the way through the credits, and yeah, this is a great movie. And it's really is a tragedy that there isn't some sort of special features on the disc. You can tell that they really did care about this story. They made an amazing story, and it's really the worst thing that Warner Brothers couldn't have put out a few more bucks. That they couldn't. They sort of gave it the same sort of treatment that they did with the theatrical release, and that they just sort of just put it out there. They didn't really either advertise it or do anything more for it, just throw it out there the way it was, which is the ultimate tragedy. That still years later, it on DVD form, it's still not getting the respect it deserves. It's like the creators put all this effort into it, and then Warner Bros. Just sort of didn't. And I would go as far as, like I said before, sign a petition to get special features on this thing. If anything, this deserves it. This is a great film. I advise you guys to just watch it again. Like, if this is if you haven't watched it in a long time, if you just listen to this, I advise you guys to go out and buy it if you can. I think it's still available in stores. You'll love it. Trust me. It's one of the best Batman stories there is out there, one of the best Batman movies, right next to Dark Knight. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoyed the commentary. I might do more of these if you guys do enjoy this. I just thought I'd do this for this because I think it deserves it. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed the commentary, and who knows, I might do more on different Batman-related things if this becomes popular. Alright, see ya.